Free your mind.
The mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work if it's not open. This is Morality Matters. Today's episode, Balancing the Brain for Success, and how you can become your greatest version by understanding what's going on right up there. So, a truly balanced brain, it's a superpower, and it's rare. And we unfortunately live in a world where it is built to keep us imbalanced, to keep us confused, divided, both inside and outside of ourselves. And this is the problem that we are facing. This is the key to our prison that we currently live in. The invisible one, but it exists nonetheless. However, when we balance the brain, and only then, not only do we feel better, we actually become wiser, freer, and capable of real right action. This is the blueprint for real improvement, and it is the guide to becoming your greatest version. Besides what people will tell you, this is the key to becoming who you're truly meant to be. And so, of course, if you haven't already gathered, I'm talking here about psychology. I could spend, as always, years and years and hours of episodes explaining the depths of psychology and neuroscience, and I'll leave that to the experts, at least for now, because what I'm going to present to you, however, is the key, the generalizations, the necessary aspects of psychology that we must all understand, instead of just thinking that we've got this mush of meat sitting around in our brains just to make us feel things. It's a lot more complex than that, and I'm not going to get into the absolute complexities of it because, like I say, we'll be here forever. But there are certain generalizations, there are certain key points and concepts that must be understood about our brain. And many people, psychologists, will tell you that these are generalizations, they are sort of blanket statements. It goes a lot deeper. I'm not denying that. But there are these aspects that must and should be understood at the very, very least, if we want to become whole and want to become one within, and don't just want to be walking around divided between what we want and what we do. It's all thoughts, emotions and actions. That is what is key. And to get yourself aligned in those so that you think, feel and act, the only way to do that is to balance the brain. And so, if you don't rule your own mind, someone else will. The brain is not just a collection of parts, it's a unified, holistic system, and it's very analogous to a computer, a biological one at that, as we all are. And therefore it can be programmed, it can be changed, it can be recognised, it can be understood, and it can be changed. And as much as people in the common consensus believe that we only use 80% of our brains, anyone with a basic understanding of psychology will understand that if that principle were to be entirely true on its face, if you were to cut out 20% of your brain, you're not exactly just going to be able to function normally like you are. We do use all of our brain, but just some more than others. And like I say, it's very complex. But the point is, we must understand the main systems and the overarching structure of what is going on in our brains, because we only really have to understand the generalized parts if we want to use it practically. We don't have to go into all of these key terms and jargon and things like that. We just simply need to understand what is, and generally as a whole what works, because then we can have a very good starting point of moving forward. And so what I'm going to be discussing our brain as being is split up into 3 main complexes that ascend in their power. That is also paired with the 2 hemispheres. Hopefully many people already know about that. And then this all boils down into the thing that is in the very centre, the one consciousness that we are all, subjectively all of us are, but then we are all connected to the one larger overarching consciousness that is all of creation. And so the key is, only when we balance these aspects, these complexes, hemispheres and parts of our brain, only when we do that can we be holistically integrated. And if you haven't gathered already from my previous videos, the true internal growth is all about becoming one within, becoming whole, becoming non-divided. Because as we do this on ourselves, our lives will improve accordingly. And then as that trickles out into society, we will not be divided anymore. There will be less schism, less division. And divide and conquer is the main key to control in this world. And schism alone is basically the cause of all wars, all conflict. This is the way to heal it. And so when we unite all the aspects of our brains, our thoughts, emotions and actions, also the aspects of consciousness, only then, when they are united, we can access higher thought, correct behaviour and internal peace. That is the key. That is the path to enlightenment. As within, so without. When you balance within, the external will balance accordingly. And division, like I say, is the cancer of this world. Schism, division, and conflict is all brought about by people not being unified within and then being divided between each other. If your own house, your body, house, temple, isn't clean, isn't structured, disciplined, how can you expect to clean your actual house, let alone clean the world or do anything of necessity and anything of worth other than just eating and, being like a slug, like a potato? And so again, a balanced brain in today's world, intentionally, at the highest up, it has been caused this way. A balanced brain is rare. Therefore, imbalance in all of its ways and symptoms is normalized in this world. This completely ruins our chances of achieving, or even beginning, self-mastery, sovereignty, and self-autonomy or self-ownership. These are the things that will allow us to be free and allow us to be abundant and flourishing. And like I say, it is purposeful. I don't have to get all conspiratorial with you for you to almost clearly, hopefully understand that in this world, imbalance and just following your desires and your lust and your impulses without a second thought, without having a part of your mind that says, no, I'm going to follow what's right, that is more rampant than anything else. It's just doing whatever my body tells me and my desires tell me. And this is normalized and this is controlled and engineered purposely so that we just become lazy, cowardly, apathetic, just slugs, like I say, doing nothing of importance, just keep my head down, don't do anything important. That is exactly what has been engineered in this world. And as my episodes progress, you will clearly see the picture of this unfold. And it is unfortunate, but it can be changed, and it begins with you. And this change, within and without, this is what the elites of this world fear more than anything else, is you becoming owning. When you own yourself and become self-autonomous and you decide for yourself and create your reality, this is what the elites of this world fear more than anything else, because then their power is gone. And so you must understand your own mind before anything else, especially before you can act rightly, and if you want to be a moral and good person and productive person in this world. And that, my friends, beyond everything else, is the key to manifesting your greatest desires. I'll have a whole episode on the law of attraction for another time, but if you want to know the very basis, and no one speaks of this, they just talk about believing and thinking and visualizing. First of all, you need to quiet the ego mind chatter, and then you need to unify all of the aspects of your brain and your consciousness. Only then will visualization and affirmations and things like that, then will they bring about results, and you'll be able to keep them consistent. Same with habits. And everyone leaves this out because they just want to sell you things. And so we are going to begin with the 2 hemispheres of the brain. Again, it's a generalization. I'm not for a second going to tell you that this is the pinnacle, the be-all and end-all of psychology. It goes way deeper. But that is for your own research to do. I would be here for hours trying to explain all of that and its studies and things like that. This is generalized, of course, but it is still true as a whole. And if we take it generally and work on those concepts and take it metaphorical partly, then we can work with it. And trust me, the proof is in the pudding. And so, of course, 2 hemispheres. We have the left and the right brain. We, in the last episode, discussed the idea of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine. These reflect in the hemispheres of the brain also. So the sacred masculine, the yang energy, or what is known as the blade in its occult symbolism, as it's the upwards pointing triangle. The left brain, the sacred masculine, the blade, the sword, in other words. This is the logical, analytical, the reductionist, scientific, language-based, linear thinking area of the brain. This allows us to be very logical, perform analysis, things like that. The very sort of blue energy, you could say. It's the very almost atheistic parts of ourselves that can be overly skeptical. And I'm going to talk about the imbalances and the worldview schisms that reflect on each side of these parts of the brain if they're imbalanced. This is the analytical part of the brain, the logic-based center. And as I go on, you're going to understand that both of these hemispheres, neither are to be neglected. They're both to be understood deeply, worked upon, and then brought together. So we shouldn't neglect either of these. We must not live in the imbalance of either side. We've got to do our very best to bring them together and become one. And so when this side of the brain is dominant, we become overly skeptical. As soon as you see something that's new or that seems a bit out there, especially anything regarding spirit, which is necessary to understand, but not the be-all and end-all, as soon as you come across any of that, you are going to just immediately go, no, it can't be that, it's a pseudoscience, oh, it's been disproven, blah, blah, blah. You see these people all over the place. Richard Dawkins, that type, the just immediately shut it off, couldn't be right, even though we've seen through many examples in history, something gets completely ridiculed and says, no, that's not true. A couple years later, a couple decades maybe, it's taken as self-evident. And so when this side is dominant, the R complex, or the reptilian part of our brain, which I'm going to talk about shortly, this takes over the executive functions of our brain. As soon as we are stuck in the left brain, and unfortunately, once again, the elites of this world want most people stuck in this left hemisphere of the brain because it keeps us in this overly too skeptical, rigid way of believing and not accepting or questioning anything new. And the R complex, as you'll see, is key in keeping us in our lower forms of consciousness, because it just makes us focused on base consciousness, base instincts, on me, myself and only, survival, what do I feel like today, what do I want to eat, what do I want to do, nothing of any higher purpose. And that's not to say the right side is any better, as you'll see, but ultimately this left hemisphere imbalance keeps us in base consciousness, materialism, we see a lot of that these days, and it makes you want to become the dominator of everything and everyone around you, when there is a true place for dominion, and that is within, being the master of yourself and the master of no one else. That is the true key here, but instead it's flipped on its head, and you'll see that recurring. It keeps us selfish, only caring about me, myself and I, maybe at the very most, my immediate friends and family, even though at the drop of a hat or the appearance of $100 bill, you'll probably put those principles aside and say, what serves me best? That is the key of left brain hemisphere imbalance. As I say, hyper-skepticism, just obviously skepticism has its place in this world. We don't just want to take everything on blind belief, as you'll see with the right brain. It's a matter of using correct and realistic skepticism, not just throwing everything aside that you've never heard before or doesn't immediately make sense or whatever. Ultimately, cold rationalism. If you hopefully can see this concept in of itself, you know the sort of person that I'm talking about. You see a lot in philosophy when they immediately shut anything down that's referring to spirit or anything beyond just what we can see here and now. And the worldview that reflects from this is everything is random, it's all meaningless, it's only about survival of the fittest, dog eat dog, me, myself and I, what does my bank account look like, what does my job entail, what orders can I give out to other people. It's the very reptilian part, as you'll see. And so this trickles down past randomness and meaningless worldview into atheism, another cancer of this world. And you'll see a recurring pattern in my work that although I bash religion, I do not for a second bash the idea of there being a God, because unfortunately too many people still in 2025 fall into the trap of atheism, of just looking at everything and it's such magnificence in many places, the beauty of things like nature alone. They just see, oh, it's so empty, it's just random, it's just, throw a bag full of sand on the ground and then expect a sandcastle to build up. That's not how it works. And of course, the overly skeptical left brain eggheads of the world, they're going to think that, they're going to see that, and the whole debate me because I'm an atheist types. Unfortunately, some of them, if they're really far like in that direction, they're too far gone, unfortunately. Once again, we all know at least one person that's like that. They're just is stuck there. Of course, the other reason why atheism sucks and why it's a cancer is because it leads and it is the root of moral relativism, another virus of the human mind. It is, I hate to repeat the word, but it's cancerous. Moral relativism is the key that is holding us back from any freedom. The law of freedom is, as morality increases, freedom increases. Only when we can find morality, objective, law, God, creation-based morality, only then can we find freedom. Because if everyone else believes that something's good and something isn't, and they have their own rules of what's right and what's wrong, chaos ensues, because one person's morality might conflict with another's. Smash. It's as simple as that. When actually it doesn't have to be overly complexified and in scenarios and dilemmas. It's simply the catchphrase of this channel: do no harm. That's all it is. Don't steal, don't infringe upon anyone else's rights. Simple as that. But instead people want to go morally relativistic and say it doesn't exist, or it's what I say, and it's a topic for another time. But this is actually the true lesson that was spoken of in the Garden of Eden. The arbitration, the taking in of oneself of the knowledge between right and wrong. Not the consumption or the possession of the knowledge of right and wrong, but actually creating it for yourself and saying, screw anything else, I create what is right and what's wrong. We see this in man's law, and we see that being the justification of atrocities in history and unfortunately even in the present. And beyond this, what this leads to? Authoritarianism. Another key padlock, chain around us all, keeping us entrapped. Believing that one, authority is legit, and then second of all, believing that authority is necessary and that you should put on that uniform and go out and infringe upon other people's rights because someone else told you to do so. It's unfortunate that people fall for this. And if you go too far into the left brain, you become the controller and dominator of others. When, once again, it's been flipped on its head, you should only be the dominator and controller of your own self and consciousness. That is all. And so, opposingly, we have the right brain. You have your opposite type of folks. And once again, you will know someone that's like this, or you will have seen someone in person or online that's like this. The New Age movement, need I say more? This is the sacred feminine, of course, the yin, the chalice, as it's known as in its symbolic alchemical terms. The chalice because it is the upside down triangle, the cup, the chalice, the womb. And I'll have this whole breakdown of concepts in a future episode, but if you hopefully saw from the last episode the sacred masculine and feminine dynamics, there is this reflects all over, as gender is one of the laws of nature. There is the pole, there is the whole. Masculine, feminine. So we have the blade, which is the upwards pointing triangle of the male, the more attacking, sort of controlling dynamic, the infringe dynamic, the sort of, go out and do it and get it kind of dynamic. Whereas we have the feminine, which is the more sort of receptive, the chalice, you fill it up. Whereas with the blade of the masculine, you're, putting it out there, using it. Whereas the chalice, of course, the receptive side. This, as above, so below, reflects in the right brain. This is the creative, intuitive, compassionate, holistic, emotional and spiritual centre of our brains. Very important, once again, shouldn't be only lived in, but should not be neglected. And yes, even if you're a man or a woman, you have both of these aspects in your brain, and it is necessary that you unify them both. I'm not saying that these male and female concepts are actually to do with biological gender, although obviously there is a component to them in if you are a man or a female, but we both have these dynamics in of ourselves, and it's crucial that if you are, no matter what your gender is, or if you're both in this day and age, you still have to align these parts. You still have to embrace both of them, because unfortunately in this whole toxic masculinity day and age idea, people just want to immediately go into the alpha male kind of thing, and they don't actually want to accept the creative, imaginative, compassionate parts of themselves. It must be embraced and used, not imbalanced once again, but you'll actually see when you have an imbalanced male or female, they're going to be overly in the left brain or the right brain. You'll see this reflect, and it's astonishing when you actually go out and test it for yourself and see it. It's scary almost, and it's because, as above, so below. This has truth. And so when this is dominant, it results in the limbic system being hugely dominating in ourselves. And you'll see in a second what the limbic system actually is, same with the reptilian brain. This is the sort of emotional bonding centre of ourselves, the mammalian brain. And this keeps us stuck in our emotions, in our feels, thinking that nothing else matters, only just how I feel today and how I feel tomorrow. It can lead to oversensitivity of everything, if it's a little scary, or I'll step away and I'm not in for it, I don't feel it. Blind faith is what comes about from this imbalance on this side. Being overly passive, you'll see this in the pacifists and the new age, sit on a mountain, man. It's a right brain imbalance. You can see these symptoms all over in different people's worldviews and religions. And therefore, they will be in an excess of emotionality. They're once again ruled by their emotions, and emotions have a role, and we should embrace them, but we should not live in and for them. Similar how we shouldn't live only for our base reptilian instincts. They are necessary because we've got to survive, we've got to fight a predator if there is one, but it shouldn't be just only lived in. Neither of them should be dominating. And so the worldview that reflects because of this is that everything is preordained. God says it all happened and it's already written in the stars. It's a whole other episode perhaps for destiny and predestination, things like that, but you're just a feather in the wind if you think that everything is preordained, destined, fate is just set in stone, you cannot change anything, because what's the point if it's all already set that way? Just sit back, kick back, wait for it to happen. We see a lot of that in this day and age, just trust the plan, wait for it to happen, I don't have to play any role in this, it's nothing for me to do. It's the opposite end of the spectrum of where you want to control everything and what I say is law, versus just sit back and wait and see what happens, man, it's all written already. Therefore, this eradicates you of your free will, the ultimate gift of the Creator. Free will is necessary, and it is the ultimate root of our power. Once we embrace our free will and align it with the deterministic aspects that do exist, natural law in other words, only then can we align the free will and deterministic factors, and we can truly act rightly and act one within. We can unify ourselves. So free will definitely has a place, but so does determinism. But unfortunately, this right brain imbalance causes us to be stuck in the kickback, don't do anything modality. But the left and right imbalance are just as dangerous as each other. And of course, if you live in this imbalance too much on the right, instead of being the dominator on the left, you are going to be the slave. The person who just, no matter how much someone's beating on you with a nightstick, you're just going to sit back and go, it's cool, it's all the plan, just let it happen, man. It's you are going to be controlled. If you don't control your own life, someone else is going to control it for you. And that doesn't mean you should go out controlling everyone. In the left brain, you've got to control yourself. Understand what you can control and what you cannot. And so, if we are trying to bring these hemispheres together, there are certain practices that we can use to actually do this. And I'm going to have a whole section on the end of the different practices we could perhaps use, even though there are many, many more than I mentioned. Ways to balance our brain, fix ourselves, and work on unifying who we are and quieting the chatter, the ego that just yaps away at all times and doesn't let the quiet whisper of your divine intuition speak. But for now, some ways that we can balance these hemispheres. Meditation. It's thrown around too much these days. I can't complain all that much because it's better being spoken about than not. But meditating correctly, doing it rightly, and not just doing it to feel comfortable about the uncomfortable situation that you're in. It's about, well, it's in the word, meditation, meditate, middle. The word meditate means to bring to the middle, to unify. Medi. That's what it's all about. And ultimately, any good person that truly understands meditation, not in its new age woo-woo form, it's more simple than people want to let it out to be. It's simply focusing on one thing intently for as long as you can. Most importantly and most commonly, the breath is incredible, because the breath is the key to everything. The spirit comes to the root of to breathe, breath. So breath is very important. Truly meditating as much as we can, not too much, because then you almost get yourself into a drug-like state, and brain scans can show this. But correct meditation, where you focus on one thing intently for enough time, and if your mind does wander, acknowledge the wandering of it, but then bring your consciousness back, bring your focus back to that one thing, and keep doing it again and again and again, and it'll be like bicep reps at the gym. You've got to keep doing it again and again and again. At the start, you'll only be able to do, one or two heavy curls, but then after time, when you've practiced it and constantly gone back and forth from I'm focusing on the breath and then I'm focusing, my mind wanders, you bring it back, and as you do it over time and bring it back and back and back, you will get better and better at the skill of not having your mind wander, so that when it's time to learn and listen, there is no wandering mind, there is no yapping, there is no distraction. It is here now, focus, intent. That is true meditation. I'll have a whole episode on it in the future, but that it basically summarizes it all in one. Beyond this, you can do introspection. The root of all psychology, actually, before it was just a philosophy. Introspection. You've got to truly look within and be honest with who you are and what's going on, and use a mirror, especially. And then beyond this, you can use shadow work. Again, another episode entirely, but looking at the dark side of yourself, the subconscious, the shadow aspect of your brain and your mind, you can focus on that and really try and battle it out and challenge it and beat it. And then your mind won't be battling itself. It won't be in two places at once. You've got to focus on and defeat the shadow. And so we combine the logic, we combine the empathy. Together, unified, they bring clarity. Both hemispheres have and must function, not by themselves, but in harmony for wholeness. And so before I break down the three complexes of our brain, the triune brain, in other words, Before I do that, I'll briefly mention the blueprint for becoming a holistic human. How we can heal this mind control, because mind control, as at its root, comes from a hemispheric imbalance, because all of the symptoms that come about from having either way, or in any of the complexes, if any of them are in balance, out of whack, or dominant, then you are going to be a piece of cake to be able to be mind controlled, because you're not going to be unified within. So you're going to take something else and run with it. Someone else is going to be able to control your mind, ultimately, especially if they understand your mind better than you do. So only when we balance, then we can activate our true will. This concept is for another episode, the true will, because it's powerful, but it's ultimately your divine, God-given will that you must follow, instead of just, what do I feel like doing today? And so on the left, we have free will. On the right, we have the laws of nature, natural law. The randomness aspect of free will, because free will is random, obviously not in its, hopefully you don't just want to be randomly acting, but it's the aspect that we can't actually predict, and it's always changing, and it's not written in stone. We have that, but then we also have the deterministic factor of it, which is the laws of nature, the things that cannot be created and will always be, have, and are. The things that will always exist, that are written in stone. The free will, random, and determined aspects both exist, and they can be unified and aligned. The answer is not one or the other, because that's the ultimate question in philosophy sometimes. We have free will, or is it all determined? It's both. That you'll see this pattern recur often. Whenever you normally come up with two things that are opposing, dialectic, in other words, often, more often than not, it's going to be some sort of aggregation of the both, or more options. It is the sacred synthesis. Free will, determinism. They come together, and you must, if you have a balanced brain, then you will be able to have a free will that is correct and proper, instead of just literal randomness of just, how do I feel today? What do I want to do? You can really have right action. And so freedom comes about, and it lies in an awareness of law, natural law, and the choice to live in alignment with it. And finally, before I go on to the triune brain, the worldviews, the imbalanced worldviews, if you're stuck on either of these hemispheres, on the left brain, you are going to be very Darwinistic. You'll see this happen a lot in this episode. There are many episodes that can be made about all these topics, but Darwinism is not what people actually believe it is. It's a theory still, as much as people believe that it's just completely proven. You'll be stuck in this Darwinistic survival of the fittest. I'll just do whatever and steal whatever as long as it helps me and my own. You'll deny all spirit. You'll think that it's just woo-woo nonsense. You're going to believe that nature is dead, that it's all just randomness and just particles smashing together in complete randomness, and nothing ever created it. And if you take it to its extreme, you will end up seeing that man is just a robot, just another automaton that is guided by genes and by biology only. This has a part, has a role, but it's not the be-all and end-all. It is an imbalance in the left brain. And you will ultimately have no higher purpose. This is the problem, because if you have no other higher purpose, not only are you going to be in an illusion world, but more likely than not, you're going to end up stepping on other people, as long as it just benefits you. You need a higher purpose. That's not for me to tell you what it is. I could give you a very good estimate of what that is. It's for you to discover yourself, but it's for you to at least understand that there is a higher purpose for you. And a healed brain perfectly helps you do this. And therefore, on the right brain is the opposite once again. It's just creationism. It's just thinking everything is God, and that he's the man on the cloud, and he's just watching you at all times, and every little thing you do is being judged, and you can't do this, but you can do this, and not this and not that. It's all the symptoms of religion. Once again, you are going to deny that matter actually has any relevance or importance, when really matter and spirit are equally as important. They need to be both understood as important, and common theme, unified in their importance, being in the world but not of it. You will only think that nature is divine, but you cannot touch it. It's all just predestined once again for you, and therefore man is just a puppet on a string for Mr. God to control everything. Just so will it be. It's not in my hands. And now we go on to the triune brain to be brought together with the hemispheres because they all interlink. So right at the very bottom of the brain, the first complex, the first evolving and developing one in our species, is known as the reptilian brain, the R complex. The base survival instincts, survival of the fittest, instincts only, ritualistic behaviour, this sort of very OCD kind of type. This brings about cold logic without any compassion. You'll see psychopaths very much have this dynamic going on. And once again, for another episode, it's a very credible reason why people speak of the elites being reptilian. Because if they're not actually reptilian beings in themselves, that shape-shifting, they very much do. The people that rule this place live and breathe the R complex. They don't have any consideration. It's not even in their lexicon to be compassionate or caring to anyone else. It's all me, myself, my resources, screw everyone else, whoever I have to step on, whatever wrongdoing I have to do, I will do it as long as it gets me what I want. Psychopaths, top level businessmen, it's rampant in them, and ultimately you can't really get to certain levels of, Wall Street and CEO positions without having at least a huge amount of your brain being in this complex, the R complex brainstem, ultimately. This reflects in the left brain in its dominance, and it creates a dominator, a controller of the world especially, but a controller not within, without. And so this is obviously important because, as I said, we need resources in this world. We need things to live. We need to obviously have the fight or flight part of our being, but it's not to be lived in. It's the first step, the first rung in the ladder of being a truly whole person. And secondly, next step up, we have the limbic system, the mammalian brain, obviously in mammals. And this is the more feminine side. This is the emotional, the bonding, the caring. Anyone who knows about psychology, it's the sort of oxytocin releasing part of our brain, the bonding chemical. This is very sort of kind, compassionate, the motherly, looking after someone kind of complex. That's going to be very active when you're doing things like that. Once again, important, but not the be all and end all, because then you're going to easily be stepped on. You're just going to be overly emotional and just, it's all, everything I spoke about in the right brain, stuck. And so if you're stuck on either of these, the left brain, right brain, R complex, mammalian brain, you're only halfway there, because not only do you have to unify those two, but then you have to unify the most crucial, but not the most important, because obviously they are all as key as each other, the neocortex. Just as an aside, it's no coincidence why the main character of The Matrix was called Neo, the One. This is the human brain aspect, the part that actually separates us largely from the animal kingdom, the part that allows us to have reason, higher foresight, and morality, really. It allows us to, properly think. It integrates this logic and this emotion and brings about true consciousness, true oneness. It shouldn't only be lived in, it should be the result and the capstone of the combination of the three hemispheres, the three complexes. And so this neocortex is crucial for us to understand. And when we live in it, we are, as I spoke about last week, we are becoming the sacred child, the Jesus figure, the divine human. And this neocortex must be understood, must be utilised if we really want to be thinking clearly and as one. This must be the leader, the controller of our lower functions of our brain. This is the seat and the key of free moral choice. And so, the master-slave think versus free think. If you are in any of these hemispheres or complexes, one of them is more dominant than other, no matter how much it is. It's obviously just the scale. Unless you are unified in them or working towards doing so, you're going to either be in the master think dynamic or you're going to be in the slave think dynamic. Left dominant, right dominant. When you're in the master think imbalance, then the neocortex is going to be suppressed by the R complex. You're not going to be able to think clearly and properly. Instead, you're once again just going to be able to think of, oh, how many potato chips can I eat today? What can I watch on the TV? How much money can I make today? Important, in moderation at the very least, but it's not the be all and end all. You're going to be the master of someone else once again, but not within the true sovereign. Your actions are going to be rooted in domination, in dominion, of I control everyone else and everything else, and if it's very imbalanced, it's going to hurt almost when you don't control something else. You need to control as much as possible, and that's what's going to happen when you are stuck in that. And especially when taken to its extreme, once again, the world rulers, they get very angry when there's even the slightest thing that they don't control. And that's why we see many rituals out in the public now that just show we are your rulers. We rule you, because they want everything that they can to be controlled. No matter what organisation, institution, system, if it's a free one, it either doesn't last very long or it's going to have to shake some hands or sign some checks or contracts eventually, because it must all be controlled by these R-complex slaves. Once again, it's the cold intellect. There is no care, and care is crucial. If you're not with this, and you're in the right dominant, you are going to be the slave in slave think. The neocortex is going to be suppressed by the limbic system, the mammalian brain. It's going to be emotional overdrive, just obedience, sit down and shut up, head down, do your work, don't question anything. You're going to be overly naive, overly trusting, gullible, and passive. It's, once again, you're going to kick back, nothing to do with me, I just follow orders, do my job. It's not a very good excuse if you're doing wrong, especially if you're just following orders. That's not an excuse. It's a symptom of being imbalanced. And free think, the solution, is hemispheric balance. It is when the neocortex leads with intellect and the capacity of the generative principle, the ability to generate good and generate anything worthwhile. The neocortex will be the leader and the real dominator of everything within. This is the true path to intelligence and correct right action. And so, to bring this all together, it must be mentioned the real Trinity, the sacred inner union. The real meaning of the Trinity, beyond just the God, Holy Spirit, and Jesus, beyond that exoteric core, is a true metaphorical, esoteric core. And this ultimately is, of course, still the father, mother, and the child. But instead of just the external version of there's a man on a cloud and a dove and then a Jesus that lived a couple thousand years ago, instead we all have this aspect of the father, mother, and child within us. The 1, 2, 3. The father is the thoughts, the R complex. It is the sacred masculine, or represented by the sun, or fire and air, the upward pointing triangle once again. And then next to that we have the mother, the emotional aspect, the limbic system, the sacred feminine, represented by the moon, by water and earth, the downward pointing triangle. And then when these are brought together, you have the union, the ultimate sacred child, the thing that is born from this, that is the true child that will bring about goodness, the neo concept. Synchronistically, this is the neocortex. It is action, right action. It is the divine child, and it is represented by the stars, the spirit or the ether. So we have the sun, moon, and stars. And if you really want to live in this Christ consciousness that many people talk about and that I'll talk about in the future, Christ consciousness is first brought about by a unified brain. Thoughts, emotions, and actions acting in alignment with each other, the sun, moon, and stars, the masculine, feminine, and the divine child, all unified, all one, all holistic. Then we can be like the Christ. Not sitting around waiting for the Christ to reappear and come down from the clouds and save us all from our ignorance. Instead, we can become like that figure, that archetype, no matter what your gender is. And then if we all do that, freedom must and will come about from that. Only then. So when thought, emotion, and action is unified, then we are acting rightly, we are acting as one. This is the divine child, the Christ. This is the force that transforms the world, not belief, but knowledge, and especially action, born of integrated intelligence, being truly one within the world, one with their head in the stars, but their feet firmly on the ground. This doesn't have to be some perfected ideal that we can never achieve. Of course, we're always going to be working towards it because awakening is a constant process. But once again, there is a threshold, there is a point of which you really step in to who you truly are and step into this Christ consciousness concept. And so I would be doing you a disservice if I wasn't to give some solutions. You could go on for hours about the different ones, and there are many people that do it better than I ever could. But I'm just giving you a few prompts, a few things to whet your appetite about how you can sort of start working towards this. So other than actually the knowledge of all of this and the real deep sort of thought and contemplation on these concepts and really thinking, looking within and thinking, yeah, how do I act upon each of these? Do I focus on this thing? Am I overly emotional? Am I overly materialistic? That is a very good step, and that can actually do the job in of itself. But of course, once again, meditation can be crucial because it can bring these hemispheres together. It can make us one within. It can quiet the mind and focus it. Shadow work and introspection, where you look within, question yourself and be honest and stop lying to yourself and stop living in a dream world and face the dark, shadowy, hidden side of yourself. You can heal your distortions and your cognitive dissonance and your thoughts, your incorrect thoughts and beliefs this way. Look into a mirror and deeply look and don't do anything else and just keep looking at yourselves and asking yourself the big question. That's a very crucial and important thing to do. But if we want to heal either of these, if we know through the introspection of it, we know that we're either on the left brain or the right brain. If we want to get out of the left brain and start actually going towards the right, try and do some creative things. No matter how sort of artistic you are, maybe try some drawing, try some painting, do some, or in music, anything, any type of artwork, photography. Start working with the creative aspects of yourself. Everyone has their predispositions of what they are better at in terms of the arts, no matter what they are, because many things are art forms. Daydreaming, especially, just unfortunately in school, it was almost beaten out of us, not literally, anymore at least. It was almost beaten out of us to not daydream. You're sitting in class daydreaming, thinking and letting your mind wander. This actually has a crucial aspect. It helps the imagination. It helps the imaginative part of our brain. But instead, as soon as we did it, we were shut down and said, stop daydreaming, focus on what I'm saying, regardless of how false you might have been taught in school, which is a lot, trust me. Bring back the imagination. Ultimately, the imagination has been killed in this day and age. Everything is feeded straight to us, and it's just, look at this, look at this, look at this. Don't actually, let your mind wander a bit and see how far your mind can stretch. And let your creativity and imagination, let it flow. That's to heal the left brain imbalance. But on the right brain, if you're deeply stuck there, do some deep learning, do some numbers workings, some calculations, some mental maths, some scientific study. These left brain sort of ideas that I speak of. Delve into some textbooks if you can, or even just do some brain training puzzles, Do some philosophical study, especially. Really start getting your mind to work and get yourself out of this woo-woo, oh, it's all whatever, man. Start really honing down and thinking on some things, and get your skepticism actually working instead of just being all naive and gullible. Really be critical of things. And then you can also, for the right brain, do some grounding. It's a very woo-woo concept these days, but put your feet on some grass. Go out into some nature, step around and do some nature connection. If you're stuck in this left brain, if you're stuck in the right, surrender your control and actually start to trust the experience. There is a point and there is a key to having trust and faith in certain things, because there is a ultimately underlying consciousness that rules everything, that it actually has what you want in its favour. There are forces that are working for you, but you have to trust that and let it happen. But obviously don't step back and completely let it happen for you, but orienteer yourself in that direction. And then if you're stuck in the right brain, do some art, do some poetry, walk in nature. Silence the mind and be here now, be quiet, be still. Explore your emotions, look into some mythology, try and touch your intuition, try and decalcify your pineal gland for one. That's a whole different concept. I think I've said enough, but ultimately what you need to understand beyond balancing all of this, understand there are no pills that are needed. If someone offers you a medication, unless it's a real extreme, imbalance, if it's really critical, maybe no pills are needed. Throw them out the window. There are no gurus that are needed. Even I don't claim to be a guru, just someone that's understood some things, that wants to put them in front of you and help you realise the same and improve yourself. There are no external saviours that are needed. The only thing you need to know is knowledge itself. The key here is awareness and an intentional balance. So I think I've said enough. Hopefully this point has hammered into you. Hopefully you completely understand this now. So I just want to say, your brain is not the enemy. Your ego is not the enemy. It's all about controlling it, realising that you are not your thoughts and that you have the ability to control all of this. Not any of that, nothing outside of yourself. You can obviously do some things, but you are not to control anyone else. You are to control this, your vessel of being in this temporary incarnation. It is your interface with reality. Your brain is the antenna, receiver of the spiritual, fractal, holographic code that exists out in the universe. You are the receiver of it, and it's your job to orienteer yourself accordingly, especially when you are one within. Only then can you do it correctly, and you won't be in illusion or imbalance. Your brain is ultimately, same of your body, a biological computer, largely. It can be coded for your success. It can be debugged, and internal antiviruses can be used. Or it can be your detriment. It can be your greatest success or your detriment. It can be your best friend or your worst enemy. You've got to look within, figure this out first, and then the rest will follow. Guaranteed. Only when we are unified within, when we are healed and led by consciousness, only then can we be guided towards truth. And that is key. There is no religion other or higher than truth itself. We must follow and be guided by truth itself, walk in that path, and great forces will come to your aid. The balanced brain is the bridge to the higher self. It is the root of all freedom. I greatly hope that you've got some value from this. I know it's been a long one. It's been a all around the place one, a lot of hinting at future concepts, but understand that this is powerful information that has been as simple and generalized as it is. It's powerful, and it's been hidden from us all unfortunately, but it doesn't have to stay that way. And as soon as we recognize and remember and realize it all, we can change this, and then eventually this. So please remember to like, subscribe, share this with as many people as you can to really help them help themselves and to really help change the world, which is hopefully what your motivation should be in some regard. Share it to your friends, family, everyone that you can. Like, comment how much this has helped you. Comment where you are in your current stage. Comment what you've found on your foundings, any potential solutions. Get this far and wide as we can, because then we can really fix the world with this information. If you want to become your greatest version, check out my other videos. There are quite a few already, but there's going to be many, many more. Each one holds profound knowledge, even more than this, and we're going to be increasing in its complexity and its power. Check those out. Go to the website moralitymatters.co.uk or jakevogels.com. Hopefully you have benefited greatly from this. I'm sure you have, and you will with my other videos. This is only the beginning. You can become anyone and anything that you want. You can achieve your greatest desires. All you have to do is control this. Balance yourself. Become whole. Become one within. And remember, there is only one rule. Do no harm. No masters. No slaves. This has been Morality Matters. Hope you've enjoyed. Remember, like, subscribe, comment, share, everything. I'll see you next time when we go even deeper into the layers of hidden knowledge that can help you become your greatest version. I'll see you next time.